let's go ahead and get started. And as other people are gathering, they can plop their information into the chat as well. Okay, well, thank you so much for joining us. We're just so glad to have you here for today's hot seat coaching session, Build to Sustain, Not Just Survive, How to Start and Scale a Giving Program. Today, we're going to talk about a topic that every nonprofit leader faces at some point, how to build a giving program that doesn't just work in the short term, but actually lasts. So if you're constantly hustling for one-time gifts, if your donor list feels more like a leaky bucket than a growing community, or if fundraising always feels like starting from scratch, then this session is for you. We'll explore how sustainable fundraising really takes shape, finding the right donors, building systems that make stewardship doable, and creating the kind of donor relationship that can carry your message forward for the long haul. So my name is Sandra Davis, and my pronouns are she, her. I'm the founder and CEO of Donorly. At Donorly, we partner with small and mid-sized nonprofits during moments of growth and change to strengthen their fundraising muscle through donor research, storytelling, and community building. And when it comes to fundraising, whether you're launching your very first giving program or trying to strengthen one that's already in motion, it's critical to pause and ask, are we building something that will last or just scrambling to get by? A program that's only built to survive the year won't carry your mission forward. No one wants that. The real goal is to create a giving program that grows with you, one rooted in relationships, systems, and community. So that's why I'm so excited to welcome our guest expert for today's hot seat coaching, Kelly McLaughlin, founder of From Scratch Fundraising. Kelly is a seasoned fundraising strategist who has helped nonprofits of all sizes move from transactional giving to truly sustainable programs. She's passionate about helping organizations find and nurture mission-aligned donors, streamline their systems, and build fundraising cultures that last. Kelly describes herself as the fundraising baker-in-chief at From Scratch Fundraising, where she helps nonprofits raise more dough without burning anything. She's been mixing strategy, systems, and storytelling since her very first bake sale at age 5. And now that she leads fewer bake sales and more million-dollar campaigns, Kelly knows how to cook up long-term sustainable results through mission-aligned, community-centered fundraising that actually works. Clients leave with deeper donor engagement, clearer strategy, and tools that make giving and fundraising feel good again. Kelly, have I missed anything? Do you want to add a little bit more about yourself before we dive in?
Yeah, sure. As our name implies, we work with a lot of organizations that are starting their very first individual giving program or one that's stalled out. A lot of our clients run the gambit from people who got their 501c3s last month to 40, 50-year-old institutions that have just never had to do individual giving and mostly make do on grants or contracts. So we've seen a lot of different things, but the thing that unites everything is we're really rooted in that from scratch. So the very first beginnings of individual giving programs. So that's what we do. And I know we're going to talk about this more, Sandra, but I'm launching a podcast next Friday. So yes. I hope everybody will follow along, and I'll have some information later to share. So yeah.
Yes, I'm so excited about that. So if you're not following Kelly on LinkedIn, follow her today. You can do it right now if it's not going to interrupt you, but definitely do it after our session, because I see her kind of launching and teasing out that podcast on LinkedIn. So I think that's a good way to kind of keep up to date on that, right, Kelly?
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah,
perfect.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Great. Terrific. Okay, so then before we get started, let's do a little bit of housekeeping. So as a reminder, the call is being recorded. We'll send it up to you later. So you all have it. But if you want to turn on closed captioning, if you need that, go to settings, accessibility, and then you can turn on the closed captions there. And then before we move into questions from our attendees, and we hope you'll ask some questions in the chat, we're going to talk through some of the common fundraising pain points that we see across the sector. And then in the second half of today's session, we'll dive into both live and pre-submitted questions. So feel free to drop yours in the chat. It's you know, a lot of fun for us to talk directly with you and process your issues with you on these calls. So please, you know, pop in any questions you have, even as you think of things while we're kind of talking through some of these first questions. So our colleague Kiasha is here. Wave, Kiasha. She's going to help us today. She's going to monitor the chat and she's going to help us work through as many questions as we can. She is, when we're trying to untangle misaligned systems, clarify who owns what on your team or just need help thinking about that, we'll work through all those together. So when we go over your question, we invite you to come off mute, introduce yourself, name, pronouns, title, and organizations, and state your question. And we might have some clarifying questions that we'll process with you, and feel free to put follow-up questions and comments and responses in the chat too. The goal is to be helpful for all involved, not just those in the hot seat. So we can all learn from each other. Let's have a kind of active live conversation together, and that'll make it more fun and more valuable for everybody. Okay, so before we dive into audience questions, I thought we could talk through some kind of common nonprofit experiences that we both faced, Kelly. We all have ambitious fundraising goals, and if your giving program isn't built on sustainable foundation, then you're constantly feeling like you're starting over. One year's success won't automatically carry over into the next. That is exhausting. We don't want that for anybody. It's an ongoing challenge, but if you wait for the perfect time to build stronger systems, deepen donor relationships, or clean up data, that moment may never come. Sustainable fundraising is about creating programs that grow with you year after year. So here's the payoff: revenue and steadier, healthier, more mission-aligned growth. That sounds good to me. So Kelly, when an organization, or Kelly, go ahead.
No, you're fine. You're fine.
Okay, terrific. So when an organization is just beginning to build a giving program, what are the first steps you guide them through, and why are those foundational pieces so important?
Yeah, so very counterintuitively, the first thing I set up with my clients is their stewardship program. And you might be asking, Kelly, if they have no donors, why do they need a stewardship program, right? Sandra knows. But I like to make sure that piece is ready and kind of locked and loaded for when we get those donors, because I say, the first donor you bring in, I want you to be ready to steward them in a very robust, awesome way so that they stay your donor in the long term. And so that's what I've found is when I set my clients up first with that stewardship piece, that's so critical, because I find otherwise stewardship becomes this reactive thing. And then when you're reacting and, oh gosh, we haven't sent a newsletter in 3 months. And oh my goodness, we had this press hit 2 months ago and we forgot to send it out. When you're doing that kind of, or as one of my clients came to me yesterday and said, we got this press hit and I'm so excited about it. I want to send it to the few donors that we already have. And I said, okay, but like, is it referring people to your website? And she said, yes. And I said, did you put the pop-up on your websites that like to capture new email addresses? She's like, no. And I said, well, okay, hang tight. We have a newsletter planned in a couple weeks. You can save the press hit for then, because right now the opportunity is the new donors, right? We don't need to reactively steward anybody because we have a plan. We're sturdy in that sense so that our donors know when they can expect to hear from us. So we feel sturdy, we feel predictable to our donors in that relationship building. And it means that the donors are not the first people you have to think of when you get a press hit like that or something like that. It's, oh, how do I maximize this moment right now because I'm being exposed to a new audience because my donors are fine.
Yeah.
Right. My current donors are fine. Yeah.
That is wisdom. You know, I heard in another setting, I can't even remember what it was, but around building a new opportunity in my business, like start from the end first, start from the end of the process first. So the stewardship is like the end of the process, and then build backwards from there. And then you'll build a more solid setup. So I think there's
absolutely,
there's something to that. I think that's real wisdom.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. And I love that story about, congratulations to your client for getting a nice press
Yes.
hit. That's awesome.
Yes.
I
Yes, it
love.
was so exciting, but she came to our meeting just ready to rattle off all the ways she was gonna use it to steward her current donors. And I was like, you have about 10 current donors. How many? And she was like, yeah, we've gotten like 1,000 hits on our website. And I was like, oh my gosh. And you have a pop-up? You said you were gonna set up a pop-up. And she's like, I didn't do that. Well, that's 1,000 people who didn't fill out your pop-up. Let's do that first. We can send an email to 10 people later. It'll be fine.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yes.
Yes, yes, yes.
My
Okay,
moment
so
of panic.
yeah, for sure, for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so for organizations that aren't starting from scratch, that maybe have a little more than 10 donors,
Mhm.
and maybe they feel like they've hit a plateau in their fundraising. I feel like every
Mhm.
organization goes through this at some point.
Yes. Yes.
What are the signs that it's time to kind of rethink or refresh the approach?
Yeah, sometimes it depends on the reason we're plateauing, but
Hmm.
the first thing I always do is run a donor base assessment for my
Mm,
clients so that we're looking at the analytics, because I find a lot of the time when I step in with a new client, everybody's got feelings on why they think it's stalled out. Everybody has very strong feelings about it. But the data is what we have to root into, right? Because the fundraiser is tired, the ED doesn't feel like the fundraiser is doing enough, what have you, the board isn't showing up and soliciting their friends and they don't want to, so they're putting more pressure on the staff, right? There's all of these feelings tied up in it. But what we can really ground truth everything in is that donor base assessment. So I'm looking for things like, how is average gift size tracking? How is average gift size tracking relative to the mean of our donor base, right? So if not the mean is average, my goodness. Median, the median, how is the
medium.
average or the mean tracking against the median number of our donor program? And I teach a whole workshop with Charity How To. I've got one coming up soon about how to run this assessment on your donor base. But I'm looking at some of those statistics. I'm looking at donor retention. I'm looking at your relative upgrade to downgrade rates. It's a pretty deep dive, right? And we can see from that what the problem is. Often, if the average gift size is so significantly higher than the median gift, because we're overly reliant on a few donors who
Hmm.
we are petrified to lose, and we
Yeah,
haven't built out a sturdy enough program in the base, right?
yeah, right.
So that would suggest that, right? If our donor retention number is poor, obviously we've got to fix our stewardship game. We've got to get on top of that, because Sandra, I can't wait to see your face react to this. One of my clients, and I'm sure you've seen this before, they were raising $100,000 worth of donations from new donors every year, which
Wow.
is amazing, right?
Wow.
But they had a 12% donor retention rate.
Oh, that makes
12.
me sad.
And they came to me and they're like, we're so tired. Nothing's working. I was like, well, your new donor recruitment strategy is in fact working really well.
Yeah.
The problem is your stewardship program is not working. And that's the problem. That's what we've got to fix. After 6 months of working together on their stewardship, we got their donor retention up to 60%,
That's
which is
awesome.
incredible, right?
Congrats. Yeah.
And so it's that kind of stuff, right? And they were just, it was fun to watch in that 6 months how they felt so much less overwhelmed, so much less. They were like, we're going to add 3 more fundraising events. I was like, no, 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 no. We're going to just add a stewardship program. That's all we're going to do. And how much less work that stewardship is
Yeah, for
than
sure.
another gala or another fundraising event or another auction or whatever that is, right? Um, yeah, so it's those types of things that I'm looking at. We have to go to the data because everybody's too much in their fields. By the point it's plateaued or there's a problem,
Yeah.
everybody has really strong feelings about it. And so that's where we go to the data, because usually then I can pinpoint it. Oh, you're all tired because your donor retention rate is 12%. And to
Hmm.
meet budget, you're having to work so hard to get new donors, and that's 10 times harder than stewarding the donors you have, right? And so that's, now I've given you a reason for why you're tired, right?
Yeah, right.
And that's really, I think those are the things I'm looking for. The other kind of hidden thing I look for sometimes, if I'm hearing like we're tired, we don't think it's working, it's really plateaued, but the donor retention number is okay, that's when the upgrade downgrade ratio becomes really important, because your donors might not be leaving, but they might be giving less over time.
Mm-hmm.
And that's an issue that I tend to see in those programs that have plateaued, is you might actually have pretty sturdy donor retention, but people are downgrading. So you're not actually seeing the problem as easily. And so that again is a stewardship problem, but it's a hidden stewardship problem.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm seeing a thread here from in your systems, like stewardship is the thing, right? Stewardship is the kind of secret sauce.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just amazed by the story of the, acquisition, $100,000 in acquisition, because it's so much easier to keep a donor than to find a new one. So I can only imagine that that organization is going to blow up once they figure out exactly what to do to
Yeah.
retain those donors. That's really, really exciting for them. The other thing that's kind of resonating with me is the idea that people come to the solution with their feelings is like, this is human nature, right? And I always talk about, like, don't be the focus group of one when you're making decisions like this. Use the data, use information that you can gather from your donor base, and make decisions in that way. So of course we do, research. Prospect research is our bread and butter. It's what we include in all of our engagements. So I love going to the data and thinking about it this way. These are really, really great ideas. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
Okay. Third question, and then we'll get into some questions from the group. So many leaders fall into a constant hustle mode, chasing dollars, but not seeing real growth. What are some common traps that keep organizations stuck, or how can they begin kind of breaking out of that cycle?
Yeah, absolutely. For me, the way I work with a lot of my clients, and I think this is really a signal to the background that I brought to fundraising. I started as a community organizer.
Oh.
My first job was as a community organizer, and my second job was as a fundraiser. And I thought I was going into a new profession, right? But then I just realized I was doing community organizing with a different target audience, with a different ask, right? And that was
Mm-hmm.
it.
That makes sense.
Um, and so I kind of intuitively, I was the first individual giving director for the organization I was hired to work for. And I didn't have any background in individual giving. The organization had not really a big history of individual giving. They did one gala a year, and that was all their individual giving was from a gala. And I just looked at that and I was like, this doesn't seem right to me. We have a gala once a year, and we see everybody once a year, and then we just let them fly out into the universe. That doesn't make any sense to me.
Mm-hmm.
And so with my kind of community organizer background, that's when I started digging into it. Oh, we should have a stewardship program. We should bring people in. We should have these open houses. We should bring people into advocacy strategy calls. We should and just started naturally building a community around the organization. And that organization tripled in size in the 5 years that I worked there. And the thing that I love sharing about that is, when I started working there, we had 320 donors. When I stopped working there 5 years later, we had 340 donors. So I didn't grow our donor base much at all. Brought in 20 new donors in that time period, which you would think would sound like a failure. But when I stepped in, they were raising about $200,000, $300,000 from their gala every year. And by the time I left, we were raising 1.2 million from individual donors.
From
And
the
we only
same group.
add from the same group of donors,
Awesome.
right?
Yeah.
And it was because we shifted, and they had been at that 200, 300 for the decade prior to me getting there, right? They just hadn't grown at
Wow.
all.
Wow.
They started their gala within a couple of years. It was at $100,000, and over 10 years kind of grew to that 200, 300. It was really unpredictable.
Mhm.
And then we consistently grew the 5 years I was there and they've continued to grow since I left because it was a completely different program by the time I left, right? Because what the secret sauce was there was we stopped doing the transactional fundraising and we did the relationship fundraising. We focused in on
Mhm.
the relationship. And yes, we did do our gala, but I love telling this story too. Our gala, we had been holding it in the same place for 10 years. After my first year there, we had to get a bigger venue. And then we outgrew that venue. And then we outgrew that venue. And an event that used to have 100 people in attendance became an event that had 500 people in attendance.
Nice.
And the feather in my cap is it was on Michelle Obama's docket at one point, and then she didn't end up getting to come. But
Oh.
that was my missed my missed opportunity to be in a room with Michelle Obama. But that's how much it had grown in those 5 years, right? It was just, and again, it wasn't because we changed the format of our gala. It was because we were changing the format of everything around it. And we stopped, it wasn't about the transactions. We created a community that our donors were excited to get their friends involved in, and our board members got joyfully engaged in the fundraising process and all of that because we stopped doing the transaction stuff and we started really digging into the relationship and honestly relationship for relationship's sake. And then we turned around and realized, oh my gosh, it also just exploded our fundraising results. We just wanted to get to know our donors, but now we have $1 million and we doubled our staff size. So, it was a really incredible process and a really incredible thing to be a part of. And again, it was done with zero fundraising expertise on my part. It was
Mhm.
done entirely off of that community organizer background. And I think that's what I see is when we stop hustling for the money and we value the relationships, we get out of that hustle, make or break cycle because people want to be in relationship with the organizations they fund. They give because they're passionate about the issue. Um, yeah, and
It- Yeah,
that's what
that's
I
great.
see.
It's such a great story. I mean, and I remember from one of our first conversations with each other a while ago that you had mentioned this, coming out of community building, which I love. And it's proof that your story is proof that like it is all about community building. It is all about relationship building because you didn't know anything about fundraising and somehow the fundraising happened. And it probably didn't
Yeah,
even feel like solicitation anymore.
no,
And
no,
because you're in a partnership with folks, you're in a relationship with folks, they're probably in
yeah.
relationship with each other. So this becomes a place where they belong, where they feel like they
Mhm.
want to show up and they want to support. There's this old kind of adage in fundraising, if you want money, ask for advice. If you want advice, ask for money. And
Yep.
I think there's more nuance to it than that, but I think there's a kind of a reframing of that. If you want people to be joyful givers, create community and relationships.
Mhm.
And that's what gets you there.
Yeah, and it's funny because I'll do webinars or I'll work with clients and say, well, that's all well and good that you did that, Kelly, but my organization is so niche. We can't engage people like that. I was working for a foreign policy think tank
Yeah,
when
that's
I did
pretty
this.
niche.
If you want niche, wonky, weird to relate to, no cute children to show off on our brochures, right? That's what I was doing, and that's what we did there. So if you can figure out how to build the relationships, it's about not copying others, but being true to your organization, right? And what I realized was like our donors are the nerdiest of nerdy people, and they want to engage with us in nerdy ways.
Hmm.
And we're going to do that. We're going to create a place where we all just to get to be policy wonks together. And that worked, right? Because we really understood our audience and celebrated that identity of like we're gonna sit here and think deep thoughts about US foreign policy towards Latin America because that's a common thing to get excited about, right?
Hmm.
But but for our 340 donors it really was, right? And so it was at that space where they got to nerd out on that, right? And we created that space for them, right? And so yeah.
That's great. I mean, I think one thing that social media and the internet has taught us over the last few years is that there is a niche no matter how nichey, no matter how nerdy, no matter how specific, there is a place for everybody. And there's a group of people who share that same interest and value. So I love that. And another thing to think about if you're somebody on this call who has a like very kind of niche mission, is that the people that you engage, this will be their primary focus. Like they're not spreading their interest and their wealth across 14 other organizations like yours, because there aren't 14 other organizations like yours. So even though it feels narrow, it could be a complete superpower.
Yeah.
You just have to find your people.
Yeah. You just find your people. It's so great. Yeah.
All right, terrific. Okay, Kiasha, I'm going to pass it over to you. You're going to get us started in some questions from the group or questions that were submitted beforehand. Let's see what we got.
Thank you, Kelly and Sandra. These are such great insights. To get us started, I'd like to start with a pre-submitted question from a small community nonprofit team of 8 people in full and part-time capacity. Their question is, we don't have a big donor base yet, and it feels like we are always just reaching out to the same people. Where should we actually be looking for new donors?
Everybody wants those new donors.
Yeah. Well, I would say if you've been listening to this, what Sandra and I have been talking about so far, make sure you're treating your current donors like gold first before you go looking for new donors, because we've got to make sure you're going to keep your people instead of looking for new people. So making sure that like your donor retention rate is, I say like don't lean into new donor strategy until your donor retention rate is 60% or higher, which is a high benchmark because industry average is only 40%. It's a high average, but that's the standard I hold my clients to. Is we don't do any new donor work unless we're at 60% with our other donors. But in terms of where, assuming you're ready to reach out to new donors to actually answer the question, one of the things I constantly say to my clients is when you're talking to everybody, you're talking to nobody. Right? And so often we think, okay, we're going to get on social media and we're going to post a ton of great content about our organization, and then everyone will fall in love with us because we're so compelling, which doesn't work. I'm not seeing that work for a lot of people. Right? M&R's latest benchmark report too had that kind of same tone. I don't know if you've read that, Sandra, but it was just kind of like, social media, nonprofits, was kind of the undertone of the benchmark report, which was an interesting takeaway, right? Is that things are weird on social. But that's because also we're in there, we're just screaming into the void. And in keeping with what Sandra and I were just talking about is you've got to find your community. You've got to find the people who are going to make sense for your organization. They're really going to resonate. And I know a lot of people out there talk about the donor ABCs, right? Ability, belief, connection. I actually redid it with my clients. I don't do the normal ABCs. My A is access. Do you have access to this person, or can you create access? Because I don't care how much ability they have. If you can't call them, they're not going to donate to you. So if somebody else tells me to call Oprah, I'm going to say, I say what I always say, I don't have her cell phone number. Do you? Right? If you do, great. May I have it? Right?
Yes, I'd like it too, Kelly. Pass it on.
Greatest friend. Right? But I don't have Oprah's phone number, so I cannot call her. So Oprah is not a target, right? She's not a place you can look for a new donor. And I use Oprah because it's funny, but it's that, insert name of philanthropist who's prominent in your community.
Scott, Bill Gates. I've gotten the question literally.
Oh yeah,
both of
anybody.
Them, right?
Yeah, George Soros.
Exactly.
All of those, or even on a small community level, right? Oh, there is this wealthy business owner. He's putting his name on everything. How do I get a piece of that? do you have his phone number? Then
Yeah.
the answer is no, right?
Yeah,
So
right.
the first thing we're looking for in our ideal donors is access. Do we know them already, or can we reach them somehow, right? Can we create access? And maybe we can't, maybe we can get that phone number for that prominent business member if board members network their way there and all of that. So I'm not discounting that, but also we're discounting the people we come into contact with every single day and their ability to be donors, right?
Right.
And then the B part for me is still belief, right? Just because you do good work doesn't mean everybody's excited about funding that work. I always like telling the story because, again, it's funny, but it makes a point. I was in ballet class, and then my mom said, but you must try sports. You must be more well-rounded. You must go try sports. And she signed me up for a soccer team. And I went to the first practice, and somebody kicked me in the shins. And I walked over to my mom and said, I want to go back to ballet class. Nobody kicks me in ballet class, right? I don't like this. Balls don't fall at my, come at my face. I do not like soccer. I want to be back in ballet class, right? And so if you are a sports-based nonprofit, I'm sure you do excellent work. I'm not your target audience because I got kicked in the shins and decided to hate soccer forever, right? So, right, that's one of the things that we're dealing with, right? Is my life experience does not incline me to understand. However, I see somebody in here is with a dance company. I'm so excited to learn about what you do because I love learning about new dance companies because that is my passion, right? I love dance. And so I love learning about new dance organizations and what they're doing. And I actually volunteer part-time in a community dance program where I teach young kids. We do accessible, affordable ballet education with young people in our community. And it's awesome, right? So that's that belief part. You've got to find the people who, like I said with my example, the niche foreign policy nerdy nerds, right? We had to find them and keep them, right? And so that's what we're looking for, is that access and belief. And you're not necessarily going to find that on Facebook, right? Or at least you're not going to find that by creating great content on Facebook, right? You're going to find that maybe in Facebook groups that represent interests and affinities, or maybe if you're a more locally based organization, if you find a local, Facebook group that is a community of neighbors and you can post your information there, maybe you're going to find those people there. But that's the main thing. Where should you be looking for new donors is the place where your people hang out, right? I like to use the analogy of if I handed you a megaphone and dropped you in New York City to scream about your nonprofit's mission, where would you go, right? And again, a lot of people say, drop me on Wall Street. That's where the wealthy people are. And I say, well, but if you're an arts organization, shouldn't you go to Lincoln Center or the MoMA? Because there are wealthy people there who actually care about the arts, right? Like, you're narrowing your scope every time so you have a higher hit rate. And that's what we want to be doing. So I don't have a one size fit all answer to this question, right? Because it's so contingent on the community that you're trying to build, where you're going to look for new donors, because you want to find those people that are going to just be passionate. And like Sandra said, they're not giving to 20 different organizations. They're going to find out about you and get passionate about you and fund you. And that's the donor we're looking for. And they're not hanging out online. You're going to find them in real life, right? Yeah. You're going to find them in real life.
I think the one thing I would say is, like, you should be present on social media. Just don't assume you're going to raise a lot of money on social media, unless you have a very active, like, crowdfunding group. There are certain kinds of nonprofits that can use social media in that way. They're very large usually, and they have a broad mission that is familiar to folks. So there are ways that social media is useful. I think, you have to be present because you have to, your brand. If somebody is curious about you, they want to know that they can find your website. They want to know that, they can look on Facebook and you're there, or looked on LinkedIn and see your, CEO there, and that is going to build, like, trust. But it's not a fundraising solution, but it can support your fundraising, I would say.
Absolutely. I think presence is critical. But I had a client that she would not budge, right? I was like, we need to do maintenance social media, but we're not
Yeah.
going to fundraise there. And she was like, no, we're going to run a spring drive and we're going to ask for money every single day on Facebook. Do you know how much we raised? Nothing.
Oh,
Nothing. Because our audience was not there, right?
uh-huh.
Our audience wasn't interested. And they hadn't really posted on social media before either. So they had
Yeah.
like 12 followers. And it's just,
Yeah.
okay, I mean, I'll do it. If only to prove that I'm right. But
Yeah.
it's definitely like, that's definitely what I recommend with my clients is like post stuff so people feel active. That is a validator if they're investigating your organization. But unless you've got a huge active participant base on social media, it's usually not where you're going to get the bulk of your new donors.
I kind of think of it as in relationship to kind of, marketing and warming up those leads. If you have a way on social media to kind of warm up the folks who may give to you, like you said, in a Facebook group or, with constant care and feeding, then you can get to the point where a fundraising event on Facebook could make sense. But I think people don't appreciate like how much, if they haven't done it before, how much work crowdfunding, peer-to-peer fundraising, social media fundraising can take. It's not just showing up and asking. It's a long process before you get to that point if you expect anything to happen. So that's great advice. And I think that that perennial question about how do we get to Mackenzie Scott or how do we get to Bill Gates is just like, it can be so frustrating for fundraisers, but I think what you have is a great comeback. Yes, I'll call Oprah. Do you have her number?
Do you have her phone number?
Yeah.
Get it to me and I'll call her right now. I'm on it.
I don't know if she'll take your call, Kelly, but she
Yeah,
might. I don't
well,
know. She likes to talk
once
to
I
people.
launch my podcast, I'll be knocking down my door.
That's right. That's right.
Well,
All right,
thank
Kiasha, what do you
you.
got for us?
Thank you. So next up we have another anonymous question. They asked, we've had people give once and then disappear. What can we do to keep first-time donors from dropping off?
Okay, we prepped for this one yesterday. We talked about this very subject and we have a lot to say on this, but go ahead, Kelly.
Yeah, no, I was gonna say, I mean, by now I think everybody in the chat, tell me what you think we're gonna say. I just want to see, is everybody with us at this point?
It's a test.
Tell me in the chat what you think we're gonna say. I want to see.
Or what do you all do with that?
Everybody's scared. They weren't thanked enough. Close. Stewardship! We got it! Yay! So yeah, I think it's about stewardship, right? First-time donors. I really like using this analogy because I think it works. Is when we're fundraising, we're often out there asking at first sight, right? And how that reads though is fundraising is about the relationship. If we put that in the context of a relationship, that means the first time you're interacting with somebody, you're proposing marriage, which Sandra has a great comeback for. Or
spoiler alert, my father asked my mother to marry him on their first date. And obviously they got married because here I am. She didn't say yes on the first date, however. So
yeah, there we go. Exactly. So another lesson, which is donors might say no the first time you ask them, right?
My father would have been a great fundraiser, I think.
There we go. Persistent. But yeah, we're trying to invite them into this deep relationship before they even know who we are. Or to divorce it from marriage and dating and that kind of thing is like it's like meeting somebody for the first time and being like, hey, I'm moving next week. Do you want to help me move?
Yeah.
And they're like, I just met you. I'm gonna come to your house and helping you move. Like that's something you ask your friends to do.
Right.
And yet we think that in fundraising, we can do that. We can ask people for a favor the first time we meet them, or we can ask them to marry us the first time we meet them. And it doesn't, 9 times out of 10, now I can say that it doesn't work, right? But that's the thing. Then on the flip side, we've developed the relationship. The donor is excited about us. we say, hey, do you want to be in a deeper relationship and fund our work? And they say yes, and we go, great, thank you. And then we go run off with the next person, right?
Mhm.
And that's I don't know any spouses who enjoy that, I
Right.
do. And now we're going to go run off with somebody else. Generally, we're not doing that or building those relationships. You have to talk to somebody after you deepen a relationship, right? And so that's the analogy there with first-time donors is they're saying kind of a tentative, yes,
Yeah.
here's some money, but I'm waiting to see what you do.
Yeah.
Right. And so that is actually when we need to steward, right? And it's thank yous, it's sending a thank you note, it's doing thank you calls. Sandra and I have already on
Talked about
LinkedIn had a
that.
long
Yeah.
conversation about how much we love thank you calls, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, then it's more than that. It's not just thanking them right after the gift, but it's then the stewardship. It's showing them, hey, you made this donation. Here are all the cool things that happened after you did that, right?
You also had a great first question to ask of a new donor.
Yes, yes. So whether you do this via email or on a phone call, one of the things I coach my clients to say is when you call a donor the first time, say, hey, thank you so much for giving. I really wanted to reach out to you since it's the first gift, and I wanted to ask you what inspired your gift to us today. And
What I
it's
love about that is
yeah.
it's going to tell you so much about what motivated them. Did they do it because a friend asked them to? Did they do it because they got a piece of mail or they've been seeing a lot of good press about you? You're going to get a lot of information there. And also, they are going to feel like, oh, they noticed. They noticed I gave that little $50 gift or that, $1,000 gift or whatever it is. They're paying attention and now they want to have a two-way relationship.
I think it's that, and it's also, you learn a lot, right? You know what to
Yeah.
lean into. You learn what's working, so that's helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you're showing them from the bat that you're interested, you're invested in the relationship, you care about why they gave, right? Because I think that's we think donors just give to us because, gosh, I wrote the best year-end campaign. It was so good, Sandra. It was so good and inspired so much giving. It's not that, right? We have to align with what they want, what the change is that they're seeking in the world. Again, this is why my donor ABCs are different, right? We really have to lean into that belief part. And so that's the piece, right? Is when we understand that people give because they are excited and they're invested in the change we're making, then it really flips on its head how you think. I hear so many people say donors are so whiny and needy, like they should just give me the money and leave me alone, right? But when you understand that they're giving because there's something that they value, there's a change that they want to make in the world, in their community, whatever, that you solve that problem, right? And so they're investing in you, and it's a piece of them, it's a passion for them. And so when they don't hear back what happens, then they don't know that the changes mattered, they don't know that their gift made a difference, right? And that's all they want to know. And if their giving didn't make a difference to you, they'll go find someone else, right, to make a difference with. Right? Because they're still passionate about making that change, whether it's through you or somebody else.
Right. I think when you give a first gift, I'm sure we can all kind of think back to a time when we've done that. When you give a first gift, it's a vulnerable moment. You're saying like, oh, I've never done this before, but I'm responding to whatever I'm responding to. And I'm going to make an effort. I'm going to get out my checkbook. I'm going to get out my credit card. I'm going to do whatever I need to do to put the work in to make that gift and make that commitment. So I think from a donor's perspective, I feel like I want to make sure that somebody is reaching out to that donor right away and saying, we noticed what you did and we want to, kind of, let's make this a partnership. No matter the size of the gift. My gold standard is I want a board member to reach out and call, leave a message, send an email, even for a smaller gift, because we never know what the next step and the deepening of the relationship could bring. But I think that, you know, if we don't do that, and if it's just a canned thank you, I mean, you have to do that because you've got to send the, you know, the text information and
Yeah.
all of that. So you do the canned email, of
Yeah.
course, but also an individual email from an ED, from a staff person, from somebody who runs the programs, or from your board members. Have somebody feel like, you know, they're taking notice and celebrate. Like a new donor, it has, if you want to just look at it from a money perspective, a new donor has a potential lifetime value that could be huge for your organization. So make sure that you're, you know, they're walking into a party with a bunch of people they do not know. Make sure you're the host and you're noticing that they're looking a little lost. Get them to the drink table, introduce them to your favorite people in the party, let them feel welcomed and taken care of.
Yeah. One of the things I like, a practical way of doing this, because I know people all the time are just like, oh, it's so time consuming,
So much work,
right?
yeah.
It's really, really super not. If you have a donor CRM set up that sends that automated receipt, right? Most of us have that or should have that. If most CRM systems allow you to blind copy somebody on the autoresponder. It's a BCC, right? One thing I do when I build out the CRMs for my clients is we put somebody on the team on that BCC so that every gift that comes in, they get the autoresponder to that gift. Because the upside is almost all of those CRMs are programmed that if you hit reply to the autoresponder, it replies to the donor, right? So all you have to do is hit reply. You don't have to go in the CRM and look up their email address or anything like that unless you're going to do phone calls. But you hit reply. And then I think you can probably do this in other things, but I only know Gmail. But in Gmail, you can put together a template. And so you can have a standard template, right? So you hit reply, you pull up your template, you put the donor's name in, and you hit send. It's 2 seconds, right? It's not difficult. And I wish I had tried to get a couple of my clients onto this call, and they're all on vacation because it's my birthday weekend.
We've got a weekend coming up.
But my clients will tell you that's transformed the way they fundraise. That alone.
What I like about that, Kelly, is it's an automation, but you have the personal touch. So if you want to put an extra little line in, or you want to take out a sentence that doesn't make any sense, like you have that moment, you can do it before you hit send. So it doesn't feel like, oh, here's another automated message. It feels like you can make it as personal as you want to. And you as the person who's sending it has the comfort that you're not going to look tone deaf, you know, by sending something that feels too automated. So I love that solution. That's great.
Yeah.
Okay, Kiasha, we're at 10 minutes in, so we probably can do one more question. And I'm having so much fun. Let's do it.
Thank you both. I'd like to invite Tyler Thompson from the 773 Dance Project to come on camera and off mute. Tyler asked, how often do you recommend contacting donors?
Tyler, are you there? Kelly can't wait to meet you.
Hi, I'm here. Sorry, I'm getting ready for a trip, so I'm staying off camera, but I'm listening, and this has been great.
Okay, good.
But yeah, I was wondering, how often do you recommend contacting those donors, and what type of contact? How often? Like, how often should they get a call or an email, things like that?
Yeah. I say ideally I want donors to get at least one touch a month, which I realize it feels like a lot. But what I generally work with my clients on is figuring out kind of some sort of schedule that would mean like there's one kind of high impact touch, like usually everyone write this down. In October, I get all my board members to call and thank my donors again. Why? Because donors are really excited to hear from your board. And then we go into year-end fundraising. If you want to subscribe to my podcast, we'll be talking about gratitude campaigns. I will walk you through how to do that on my podcast. That's the first four weeks of my podcast is how to do that. before you launch your year-end campaign. And so Tyler, like that's obviously a heavy lift. Getting your board members to call every single donor you have, that's a heavy lift touch point. So the next month, it might just be a quick update email. Hey, just letting you know we had this really cool thing happen. We got this press hit, this, that, or the other thing. It doesn't have to be a newsletter. In fact, newsletters sometimes aren't as effective as those shorter things. I think newsletters have a place, right? So we might do a short update, and then maybe the next month we do a newsletter, right? We vary it up based on your own mission, right? And what's going to excite the donor. Maybe you're with a dance company, so maybe donors get invited to a special dress rehearsal, right? I love seeing that. Again, as a dance nerd, dance companies around here, when they invite me to a dress rehearsal, I'm so excited because it's so fun to watch other companies do dress rehearsals, right? And so that's a fun thing to do. So you can do those higher touch. It's going to take time to invite them and RSVP and stuff like that. Do a couple of those a year, and then make the others things that can fit in a little easier, right? But I tend to think if you go a couple months without your donor hearing from you, they kind of, the next time you pop up, it's kind of a like, oh, what are you doing here kind of moment with them. So, and it's really critical to me that especially the more personal high touch ones are really, really integrated into your mission. Like, I'm not a huge fan of like donor thank you events that you host at a fancy restaurant. Like, I don't know that donors are really interested in that, but like, tell me that the next donor thank you thing is a dress rehearsal for your dance company. I'm there, right? I would love to do that, because if I'm giving to you, I'm passionate about dance and I want to see the process and I want to understand what your company is doing, right? And so that's how I think about it, is a couple high touch and then mostly low touch stuff.
I think that's so good. A couple of ideas I have is, again, with a new donor, if you want to set up a kind of rapid fire sequence of content at the very beginning, so that they maybe have a note from your leadership, maybe a video about some of your work, maybe a introduction from the person on your development team who's going to be the person who, call me if you need anything kind of person. So you can kind of think of 3 or 4 things to send out and kind of rapid fire, just to get them warmed up and get them feeling comfortable and invited in. And then I would say some of the things you recommended, Kelly, I think are great. And I think that, don't be shy about repurposing content that like is already on your website. If you have a group of videos, or you have a YouTube channel, you have a group of videos, like a dance company, you probably have some beautiful videos that you could use. Maybe it's, meet our company members. Maybe you already have those videos on your website. You can take those, put them in an email, because you can't assume that this person has looked at every page on your website, and go ahead and just send it off to them. So it doesn't have to be like constantly creating a new email every month. You can kind of repurpose what you've already done. Make it easy on yourself.
Yeah. That was very helpful. Thank you.
Yeah. Have a great trip.
Thanks.
Okay. All right. Well, let's wrap it up. Kelly, this hour has gone so fast. I can't even say. I think we could do another hour if we wanted to. Maybe we will in the future.
That would be fun.
And I'm definitely going to be partaking in your podcast, because you have a lot of good information and a lot of good advice. So I love that. Yeah. So thank you, everybody, for joining us, and especially you, Kelly, for all of your wisdom. I just loved it. We're going to put in the chat how to reach all of us. So for Donor.ly, Donor.ly.com is our website. We're on all the socials at @_Donor.ly. And then I'll share my LinkedIn. If you're not already linked with me, I would welcome a contact with everybody here. I may be reaching out to you as well. And then Kelly's information, why don't you tell us where we can best find you and what to look out for, Kelly?
Yeah, for sure. Our website is fromscratchfundraising.com. You can also go to fromscratchfundraising.com/subscribe if you're interested in getting our weekly emails. Or you can sign up for early access to the podcast, and that'll get you on our email list too. But yeah, I'm very active on LinkedIn, so more on my personal one than the company page. So yeah, I'm Kelly McLaughlin, Kelly-McLaughlin-funds on LinkedIn, because there are a million Kelly McLaughlins out there. I am not unique and special. And of course, you're welcome to email me to kelly@fromscratchfundraising.com.
I would disagree. You are unique and special. Maybe your name isn't unique and special,
There we
but
go.
I take issue with that. Okay, so we'll share, share it in the chat. We'll share it in an email. We'll send out an email today. Is that right, Kiosha? Will we be sending out an email today?
Yes, that's correct.
Awesome, thank you. But we'll send out the recording next week, so probably Tuesday, so you can get everything on here, and we'll put some key takeaways in the email as well, and then we'll share some details about our hot seat coaching in September. We are going to be talking with Hannah Zollman. Wave, Hannah, I think you're here. And we're going to be talking about beyond the give or get, empowering your board as fundraising champions. So who doesn't need to know more about that? I mean, that is going to be a very, very rich topic. So we're scheduled for Friday, September 26th at 1 p.m. ET. We're always the last Friday of the month at 1 p.m. Eastern. And I hope to see everybody there. It was great fun. Thank you all. Let's keep in touch on LinkedIn and via email, and happy fundraising to everybody.